Good evening, guys. It's your friendly neighborhood Doc. Just thought I would go ahead and do my video tonight talking about what I picked up at the comic shop today. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, first up is The Sacrificers by Rick Remender, Andre Lima Arujo, and Dave McCaig is the colorist. And this is talking about Saluna. Okay, and Saluna was the daughter of one of the gods, and she lost her godly power, and now she's wandering this world of mortals, trying to figure out where to go, who can help her, who's with her, who's against her, and things like that. This has turned into a really, really amazing story. It started off kind of slowly because you had characters who were sacrifices to these gods, and they would drink of their life energy, of their soul, in order to stay young. And this was one of the gods who had been young for all those years, and her father had taken care of her, and like I said, she lost her powers, and they've been transferred to another, and so now she's just trying to survive, just like each and every one of us every day. She's going through life without any sort of extra grace. So, the story that Rick Remender seems to be telling here is one of family, one of responsibility, and one of relationships, and how you treat those people that you have those relationships with. So I really enjoy every time I get a chance to check out an issue of this, and I'm glad that it's an ongoing, because that gives Rick Remender some time to really breathe life into these characters and expand this world. It's kind of like Phantom Road from Image by Jeff Lemire. I don't know how long that book is going to go, but Lemire has said he wants it to go for about 50 issues. So the artwork in this is amazing. The colorist, as always, with Dave McCaig, is just top notch. You can't beat it. And so that was a really, really great read to start off my week. All right. Secondly, we have the penultimate issue of, well, actually, this is the end of this particular story arc. Issue 7 through 12 of Something Epic by Simon Kodransky. And this is the finale of this particular arc, but it's going to continue on. You can tell not all the questions are answered. One of the characters, the main character, Noah, who is a detective, got a lot of answers about herself and her own life, but she didn't really figure out who took Zeus out. And yes, I do mean Zeus, god of lightning and thunder with his thunderbolt right there, but that is Set, who had used Zeus's thunderbolt. So the artwork in this, to have been done by one person, it's just amazing how deeply it can affect you, because you look and you see fully completed art like that, and then he's trying to tell a story on lined notebook paper. And so it goes to a much looser, sketch-like story. And then you go back to this, which, to be honest, reminds me a lot of J.H. Williams III, and reminds me a lot of J.G. Jones. So, but he's definitely got his own style. This book is truly something epic. It originally started out with a story of epic characters, and they were people who were mortal, but they saw in such a way that their imagination became lifelike and moved into the real world. So you've got animated characters interacting with mortal humans, and you've got, I haven't seen this yet, but you've got Megatron interacting with Sonic the Hedgehog, interacting with, Super Mario. So it's really interesting world that these epics can see things that other people can't see. And it almost gives them, that's almost their superpower, is that they can see a reality that is there underneath the surface for the rest of us, but we just don't have the imagination or the brain power to see it. So this has turned into one of my favorite books. I almost dropped it at the end of the first series, issue 6. But I'm glad that I held on and I've continued to capture this with each new issue, because it is world built on a scale that I haven't really seen in a very, very long time. This is something that is apparently a passion project for Kodransky, and I'm definitely on board. Can't wait for issue 13. All right, next up, we have Void Rivals, issue number 11, which is the penultimate issue to this particular arc. And we get to see Springer and Dalek and Salila. And they all interact in a very natural kind of way. This artwork, as it goes on, I don't know if Dave Felici has tried to do this, but this and Transformers seem to share a lot of DNA with their artwork. Dave Felici has his own art style that he used in previous books, like Oblivion Song, but at the same time, this really meshes with what you see in the other Transformers books, and characters like Rodimus or Hot Rod really do look the way that you would expect them to look. And with each issue, it seems like Kirkman is just building this Void Rivals world and this Energon universe into one. He's just stitching it with such a profound hand that you're just like, man, this is all, it fits together. Because sometimes you read stuff and it's just pigeonholed and you're trying to fit a round hole into a square peg, and it just doesn't work. For Void Rivals, it most definitely does. And you come to care about these characters. Kirkman, cut his teeth on The Walking Dead, which by the end was a little bit long in the tooth. But you came to care about those characters in the 17 years that you read about them. And most of those characters did not survive the entire 17-year run of the book. But that was one of Kirkman's strongest things, was characterization. Making you feel what people feel. Making you believe what they say. You really felt that Rick was the only leader for those people in The Walking Dead. And you couldn't have really put anybody else in that role to fill that role. It wouldn't have felt right. So, it's kind of like Shawn Michaels has been my favorite wrestler for years. And when he gave his retirement speech, and then when he gave his I Lost My Smile speech, even though the I Lost My Smile speech was kind of silly back in the day, you felt it from the heart. What he was saying was coming from the heart. And, and you've got some wrestlers that go out there and they collect a paycheck and, I'm not going to say they do the bare minimum, because that is an extremely physical job. I don't know if there's anybody that's not an American watching my videos, but for all of the flack that American pro wrestling gets, that it's not a real sport, that these people don't, exercise and they don't. There's a lot of choreographing in wrestling, but there's also a lot of physicality, and there's a lot of heart, and there's a lot of spirit. And you have to get behind those characters, and you have to believe in the characters as much as you believe in yourself some days when you get up. And so that's one thing that I love about Void Rivals, is that Kirkman has taught people to believe in the characters that he writes, and that he builds not just worlds, but he builds characters that are totally believable and totally could be at Marvel when it was the world outside your window. But instead, he's given that talent to Void Rivals and to Image Comics, and I'm extremely glad to be along for this ride, and I can't wait to see what he and Dave Felici and Patricio Del Pesce come up with next. All right, speaking of next, we have the final issue of Creature from the Black Lagoon, which is a Universal Monsters miniseries, once again from Image and Skybound. This was by Dan Waters and Ram V, and the artist was Matthew Roberts, with colors by Trish Mulvihill. It ended a little weakly for me. She's chased this guy across multiple continents to bring him to justice, to see him get justice for almost killing her and for drowning a bunch of other people. And it shows that he was psychotic and that he had had a break because he was trying to mold himself into a creature much like the creature from Black Lagoon. But he was just human. But he had carved up his own skin. He had done all these different things. And the artwork never really let you down. It kept you involved in the story, and then you had creepy panels like this where he's walking, away, and you just kind of, you see that he's human, and then he's less than human, and then he's gone. So the artwork was not as strong as it could have been on this last issue, but the writing didn't seem to be as strong either. I just got through talking about characterization and really bringing you into the world, and I guess when you have a creature like this character, like the creature from Black Lagoon, that doesn't really speak, you've got to give it front and center. But for the first 3 issues, you hardly saw the creature. And then all of a sudden, he becomes a savior at the last moment to this main character. So it's interesting how that turned out. I don't know if I was entirely happy with how that ended, but I'm glad that I read it, and I'm glad that everybody had the opportunity to read it. I think they've got a Frankenstein book coming up next, so that'll be interesting to read as well. And the Dracula book by Martin Simmons and James Tynion IV was top-notch. So hopefully this was a little bit of a swing and miss, but hopefully Frankenstein will do better when it comes out a little bit later this year. Next up was Feral, which is also from Image Comics, and it's from Tony Fleeks, with art by Trish Forstner and Tone Rodriguez. And this is telling the story of these cats in not a zombie apocalypse, but more so a rabies apocalypse. And they're having to learn to trust other cats, learning to trust who they can. It seems like, I don't know, it's almost like a zombie movie, because it's almost like The Walking Dead, because you have characters turning every single issue. And this is not a miniseries like Stray Dogs was. This is an ongoing series. So you have all these characters that, again, you're getting involved with. You've got Elsie, who's right there in the middle, and then there was Lord, who ran away in the last issue, and then you've got Patch. And in this issue, Patch turns. And it's really sad. Because, you know what, I've always been a dog guy. I've always liked dogs more than cats. But my wife and I actually have 4 cats, including this little stinker right here who's asleep. That's our Percy cat. He's a little kitten. And he was just born on Easter. He's a little guy. But I've kind of been taken with cats. And you learn that they can take care of themselves. But at the same time, they do crave your affection. And they crave your attention. And this is just a story kind of like Homeward Bound was for Disney many, many moons ago. It's a character study. And you're learning how these cats are learning to fend for themselves, and they're growing up. because they've lived in a world where their humans took care of them, provided everything for them. And now it's come down to they have to provide for themselves and they have to take care of themselves. So it's almost, the artwork in here is almost like a Don Bluth movie. Very, very similar to that. But it's high energy and it's high entertainment. And I'm really excited to see where they go with this. Like I said, this is an ongoing rather than a mini like Stray Dogs was. So there's a lot of life. I mean, Walking Dead went for, like I said, almost 200 issues and 17 years. I don't know that Feral will last that long, but even if we get a good 40 or 50 issues out of this series, that would be really great to see how these characters grow, how they interact with new and different characters, and how the story moves forward as those characters die and age and depart and possibly return to the series. All right, next up, Something is Killing the Children, issue 39. This 0 year thing has kind of reinvigorated the title. I heard somebody the other day and it reminded me, Something is Killing the Children was originally supposed to just be 6 issues. And I think after Archer's Peak, which I have the hardcover over here on my shelf, I think after the first 15 issues, when Tinian and Deladera told that story, it felt like the title kind of lost its way. From that 16 to 20, when they started doing, fleshing out Erica Slaughter's backstory, it just felt like they were floundering. He didn't really know where to go with the story. But now, you're sitting here reading an entire book, practically, with Erica Slaughter talking about her background, talking about what she, how she became the person that she is, and the traumas that led her to become the person that she is. And it's really interesting. I'm not really one that enjoys the stories that, you have people sitting around eating, drinking coffee, things like that. But here you're learning more about Erica Slaughter, not so much about the House of Slaughter, not so much about anything else, but you're learning what made Erica the strong female lead that she is. But you're also learning that she's not always strong. And sometimes things hurt. And sometimes she has these emotional bursts and outbursts. And so I thought that was an interesting headshot. You're directly on top of this guy and shooting straight down. But over almost 40 issues, and they said that issue 40 is supposed to be something huge, so that'll be interesting to see if they actually pay it off the way they're supposed to. Sorry, guys, I'm having to readjust. But it's turned into, again, one of my favorite books, and I look forward to reading it every month, because it's not about the murders. It's not about the victims. It's about the growth of this one character. Because, again, she keeps interacting with new and interesting people in each story arc. So it will be really entertaining to see how her character moves and shifts and turns into something completely different by the end of the series. Again, I don't know how long this series is going to run. It's run for over 3 years now at this point. So it may be that James has got 50 issues in the tank of this. Maybe he's got more. But are you guys reading Something is Killing the Children? Has anybody hopped off of it? I read the first 5 issues of House of Slaughter and wasn't really impressed, and I hopped off of that. And I've got friends at the comic shop that keep telling me, like Trey, that it got 10 times better with issue 6, and it just kept getting better and better. It's kind of like, what's the furthest place from here, from Image? I hung out with it for the first 6 issues, and then I dropped off with issue 7, and people said that it's gotten a lot stronger, and I think it's up to 19 now. So, okay. Moving on, we have, looks like, 2 books left. We have Conan the Barbarian from Heroic, with Jim Zub and Doug Braithwaite as the artist again, stepping in for Rob De La Torre. And this tells a story of young Conan. I'm starting to realize this was a characterization and world building kind of week. But look at that. Look at that. Is that not cool? This double page spread. So this tells about Conan going from being a young boy to the man that he becomes, and the Cimmerian that he becomes, as he is trying to fend off wolves. This shows him as a young man, as a boy, learning from his father. This book, too, shows a lot of who is this character and how did he become who he is. And that's what I'm really starting to like about Jim Zub writing Conan, is he's giving Conan a lot of depth. Many people, when they read Conan or when they watch, the movies or whatever, they think he's a one-dimensional character that just goes and proceeds to wreck and destroy and steal, kill, that sort of thing. But he really is a multifaceted character. Is he the most, does he have levels to him kind of like Spider-Man or Hal Jordan? No, he does not. He doesn't go that deep. But his motivations are always clear. You're always sure why Conan is doing what he's doing, even if you're not sure what the circumstances are around him. But the artwork by Doug Braithwaite is breathtaking. I've known of Doug's artwork since he stepped in to do the second and third Earth X miniseries, where he took over from John Paul Leon. And at that point, I wasn't really a fan, because his artwork was so different than John Paul Leon's. And Leon's artwork is very similar to Tommy Lee Edwards. And I didn't like that scratchy stuff to begin with, but now I have a better appreciation for his artwork. And I really hate that John Paul passed away a few years ago, because I'd love to see some new stuff that he had created. But anyway, to get back to Conan, this has been one of the strongest and longest times that I've actually read Conan. I started with Dark Horse back, around 2005, I think that was, with Kurt Busiek. And I want to say that I stayed on that title for about 20 issues before I dropped off. But as long as they've got Zub writing this, and I'm looking forward to the Black Stone saga that is upcoming, as long as they've got him writing this, I'm in it to win it, because he loves this character. You can tell that he loves this character in the same way that J.M. DeMatteis loves Peter Parker and Spider-Man, or the same way that Dave Sim loved Cerebus. Okay, so last but definitely not least, we have The Nice House by the Sea, once again by James Tynion IV, with Alvaro Martinez Bueno as the artist and Jordi Belair as the colorist. And this starts the second cycle, as Tynion said, of this story. The first was The Nice House on the Lake, and this is The Nice House by the Sea. And we've moved over to the Mediterranean area, and this is a different story than the first one from the get-go. Walter, the main character that gathered all of the people into the house in the first series, broke the rules that he was supposed to follow. This series shows more of what happens if you just gather 10 of the most intelligent, noteworthy people on the planet and put them together in this house. The first was Walter was gathering people who he considered friends, that he had come to know and come to love over the years. The person who is putting these people into this house did so with their own motivations, but it's definitely not the same motivations as Walter. So the artwork, just like the first series, was top-notch. I just really, really hope and pray that they don't have a bunch of... There is the nice house by the sea. I hope that they don't have a lot of breaks, because that's what made people lose interest in the first series, I believe, was that it took so long, I think, between issue 6 and 7, and then again from issue 10 to 11, it took forever for those issues to come out. But you have this breathtaking artwork by Bueno. You have these interesting characters, like the writer, Victor Pace. And this, again, I believe, will be a 12-issue maxi series. And we just have to wait and see how all the pieces fall together with this particular house. We're not really sure whether this happens after Walter did what he did and put his people in the house, or if it's working concurrently with the story to the first cycle. But as long as there's not a lot of big breaks in this one, because I really think I need to go back and reread Nice House on the Lake all in one fell swoop, just to get an idea of how that story moved along, because it jerked and stopped and moved and started, and hopefully this one will have a smoother release schedule. And maybe they've got at least 7 or 8 of the 12 issues, maybe not in the can, but maybe Bueno is working on, say, issue 6 or 7 at this point. And then, James Tynion won't have to take a break in between. Or maybe if it is, maybe it's simply a month or 2 rather than 4 or 5 months. But I was really excited to read this. I'm really excited to follow up on it with issue 2 when issue 2 comes out. And that was, if I had to pick, would be my pick of the week, because I think it started off extremely strong, and I can't wait to see where Tynion and company go with this story. So that was what I picked up, folks. That was what I read. What did you pick up? What did you read? Throw it down in the comments section below. Let me know how your week is going, what you're excited to read. I haven't picked it up yet, but digitally I've started reading Rook Exodus from the Ghost Machine imprint at Image with Jeff Johns. So I think I might go pick up issue 3 now that it's dropped a little bit cheaper on Amazon. And I know that issue 4 came out this week, but like I said, I'm just collecting it digitally, so I don't think I'll pick up issue 4 yet. But anyway, guys, that's it for me tonight. I'm going to try to finish reading the next 3 issues of Strange Haven, and maybe get a review video out to y'all tomorrow or possibly Friday. Stepson's got a band gig tomorrow afternoon, and I'm not really sure what time I'm going to get off work, so I may not have time to upload anything. But thanks for watching, guys, and we will catch you in the next video. Have a great night.